Hello, everybody, and welcome into a new episode of Prep Rally, a high school sports podcast brought to you by the Daily Journal and djournal.com. It's a webcast as well, coming to you live at djournal.com around 11 a.m. every Wednesday. So if you're listening to the podcast and want to watch the webcast, check it out. You can get the replay at djournal.com. Podcast version dropping later in the day on Wednesdays for free in iTunes, your podcast apps, or at preprally.djournal.com. I'm your host, Brad Locke, and joined by Blake Morgan. Gene Phelps. How you guys doing?
I'm all right.
Doing well.
Well, good, guys. Good. Here we go. To do multiple things there. Sorry, guys. Had to type something. I'm getting messages here as we're trying to do the podcast.
Phone call.
Well, Gene, can't take it, Gene. We're live. Can't take the phone call while we're live. So we've got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we're well into the football season now, a couple of weeks into it. But first, I want to remind y'all that we're on Twitter. Follow us at djournalpreps. And be sure to check out the other podcasts we do. We have another sports podcast called Double Coverage with Parrish Alford and Logan Lowry talking about Ole Miss and MSU. That's every Thursday. So those guys will have a new episode tomorrow. And that'll be available in iTunes, your podcast apps, or at doublecoverage.djournal.com. And the memo with myself and W. Derek Russell. 3 days a week, talking about the news and entertainment scene in Northeast Mississippi every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at memo.djournal.com. You can also find that in your podcast apps or on iTunes, depending on what kind of device you have. And you got a new episode coming today. Just finished taping it. So, all right, here we go. Football, week 2, rewind.
Oh.
I had it wrong on the script. It says week 1. It was week 2 last week, wasn't it, guys?
Mm-hmm.
A little inside info there that I messed it up, and it's okay.
Week 3, and we're not out of August yet.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Well, today's the last day of August, so we're getting there. Yeah, we'll be into the playoffs before you know it. This high school season always seems to go by so fast, doesn't it?
It does. It might kind of bog down toward the end. You start getting toward the playoffs, and you're trying to get the season over and get the playoff pairings done, and basketball's going. But
yes, indeed,
it gets a little slow then.
Well, let's recap some key games, key results from last weekend. You had Tupelo defeating Corinth 44-21. Nice little non-division matchup. The Golden Wave looking good, and Jaquarius Williams, aka J-Rock. You had a good game, didn't you, Gene?
He did rush for 167 yards, had 2 touchdowns. One was for 151 yards. He had a 35-yard touchdown run called back, had a hold that he didn't even need. He was already past the guy. But anyway, a big win for Tupelo. Anytime you can beat an area rival, that's good. There were some concerns coming in that Corinth, with this new coach Todd Lowry running the Delaware wing T, that they would maybe present Tupelo some problems. Corinth had beaten Aberdeen the week before, 35-6. Of course, we've seen now that Aberdeen team is really down and missing the 19 players that have finished school there and have gone on. They're rebuilding truly in Aberdeen this season. But Tupelo's defense really shut the wing T down, except for one play. The quarterback, DT Sheffield, who's a freshman, I believe, and he's a little water bug, and he shot through there and got in the secondary, and they took some bad angles, and he burned them for a long run, like a 73-yard touchdown run. But to show you how well Tupelo's defense played at halftime, now remember, 73-yard touchdown run, Tupelo's defense held them to 74 yards total offense in the first half. So other than that run, with some sacks and tackles for losses, they had like 1 yard total offense. But in the 2 touchdowns that were scored late in the game, like in the last 6 minutes, and it was after Tupelo turnovers with the backups in there and backup defense in there. So really, 2 weeks in a row now, Tupelo's defense is played pretty masterful. I asked Hammond the other day, could this defense possibly be compared to the defense of 2013 that helped take Tupelo to the state championship game? He said, not too soon to go there.
I guess.
That ball club had 3 kids that are playing college ball now. So
right.
A little early to make that comparison, but it is a good defense nonetheless. Tupelo did suffer a big loss. Outside linebacker Peter Gray, who was our player of the week Male Player of the Week last week. He's a transfer in from Houston, Texas. A really fine player, about 6'3", 6'4", 230, outside linebacker. Got hit by one of his own players, dislocated his shoulder. I talked with Peter at practice earlier this week. He plans to be back next week for the Brandon game. So the shoulder wasn't as damaged as first thought after x-rays and things, and he's rehabbing and trying to get himself worked back into the lineup for that Brandon game. And they'll need him and about 4, 5, 6 others like him to stop that Brandon team, ranked #1 in the state.
Yeah, well, and Tupelo will be back in action this Friday against Shannon. We'll talk about that game in a little while when we look ahead. A couple of other games I want to look at. Pontotoc defeats Kossuth 38-26. Big win for Pontotoc. Pontotoc are number 5 ranked large school. Kossuth going into that game was our number 1 ranked small school. And of course, everybody knows they've got Jaylee Adams at running back. And so Blake, that's for a Pontotoc program, trying to really take it to the next level. That's a pretty good confidence builder.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, we didn't really know how good Pontotoc was. And I mean, after the first 2 weeks, they've had 2 impressive wins. We're starting to think that they might be the real deal.
Yeah,
they might really have something going down in Pontotoc. They have a solid offense. Yeah. Jacob Carter is the coach's son. He plays really well, really smart, and I obviously the defense is pretty good too. Being able to shut down a guy like Jay Lee.
Yeah, and Pontotoc, that offense led by Jacob Carter had 467 yards of offense, and I know Jacob had a good game. So, yeah, Pontotoc, big for them, and I mean, no shame for Kossuth to lose that. Kossuth, a 3A school. Pontotoc is 4A now, aren't they, these days? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that was a big win for the Warriors. And then in the Skunk Bowl, Blake, you were there. Boonville and Baldwin, a defensive struggle. Boonville with the 13-6 win. Obviously, their defense played well, and that, against the Baldwin offense that you've seen light some people up early this season.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised in talking with. This was my 3rd week in a row to cover Baldwin, so I've, made some connections there. And I get to the games early, and I was talking with some coaches and then some people in the press box about Baldwin, and they thought the game would be over early, and that was obviously not the case.
Right.
And it was funny. I've had a lot of pest problems in my apartment, and the exterminator I had come was actually used to be a lineman for Baldwin. We were talking about it that day, and he said, yeah, the biggest difference with this Baldwin team is we don't have a good running back. And I thought it was interesting. They really struggled to move the ball running, which really put a lot of the pressure on John Sweeney, who the quarterback, who's done a really good job to that point of spreading the ball around and getting the ball to Felix Hayes and Calvin Harris on the outside.
Yeah.
But Boonville was ready, and they stopped the run and forced Baldwin to pass and left. Boonville pushed the corners off about 12 yards. It just expecting, Sweeney to throw the ball up in the air down the field, and Boonville was ready. And they had the safeties hanging over top, and they had the corners pushed way off the line, and Baldwin just couldn't adjust. And they came away with the win. Yeah.
And offensively, I mean, Boonville only put up 13 points, but their quarterback, Preston Stroop, he seems like he's playing pretty well early on, and he threw 2 touchdown passes that game.
He did. He threw 2 touchdown passes in the week before in their win against Walnut, too. He also just did a really good job of controlling the pace, and that's what I talked to Boonville's coach about, and that's what he said he's been really impressed with is just his ability to kind of calm things down on the offense, which is what you want from a leader of the team. Is he calms the team down. He's really more of a runner than a passer. To be honest, he's got a he throws it just like he's throwing a baseball. And he hurls it at people.
He ran for like 130 something yards in the opener, didn't he?
Yeah, right. Baldwin did a really good job of kind of limiting his running abilities, but he was able to open it up a little bit passing. But yeah, I mean, he's the leader of the team, and when you have a senior leader like that and the team looks to and believes in that, that can do some really good things.
Yeah. Some other key results I just want to note from last Friday. You had Starkville against Oxford in what they call the Little Egg Bowl. Starkville, our #1 ranked large school, had a tough time of it. Oxford had a chance to tie the game late, but Starkville got a big 4th down stop, and they hold on to win 28-16. Houston defeats Calhoun City 21-7. Gene, that was an interesting result to me. Calhoun City perennially one of the better teams in our area in 2A there, and I know Houston is a bigger school at 4A, but that's a pretty good win for that team. That defense, you've written about them, Gene. They're pretty stout.
I mean, it starts with John Walker, the nose guard, and they really. I thought Calhoun City had just reloaded this year. I mean, they look real good on some video I had seen.
Yeah.
And, if we were picking games, I would have picked Calhoun City in that game. And even knowing Houston's defense, and Houston came away with a really big win in that one, 21-7. That was one of the scores that really surprised me. It doesn't surprise me that Houston's doing well. I think Ty Harden's doing a great job. He's fired up. He's got that program. I think they're going to maintain where they've been, really solid down there. But, wow, big win.
Yeah, definitely. And then another one, Amory defeating Saltillo 24-16. Nice win there for the Panthers. First win for new coach Alan Glenn at the helm at Amory.
That's right. And that was kind of interesting, a sidelight. I think we may have mentioned it in a pregame note. You know, Pat Bird, Saltillo's coach, had coached at Amory for years.
He sure did.
And, of course, Alan Glenn's a former Amory player he was the center for Will Hall when Will Hall was the quarterback for his dad, Bobby,
right.
at Amory. So
that's right.
It was an Amory family reunion, won by Amory.
There you go. So that's just quick look back at last Friday's results. And you can, if you want to go back and read some of these stories and coverage we had, just go check it out at djournal.com. Let's look ahead now, guys. Got some big games this week, still in the non-division schedule, but some good rivalry games. And we're going to start with Tupelo against Shannon. Both teams 2-0. Tupelo ranked 3rd in our large school rankings. Shannon 4th. This game's at Shannon, and Gene, it's one of the best rivalry games in the area. And this shapes up. It could be a really good game, especially the way Shannon's offense is played.
Yeah, I understand Shannon's a little bigger on the line, probably than Tupelo. Should be interesting. I covered Shannon 707, and Blake can talk about Shannon a lot more than me, but Shannon's got a lot of really good skill players. They've got a good quarterback. I believe he's a sophomore, Jordan Gilliland.
Yep.
Actually, the Tupelo game last year was his first extensive playing time.
Yeah.
He went on to have like 6 or 7 consecutive starts after that. You know, Shannon's set at quarterback. That's a key position to be set. Coming into this game, Tupelo is not set at quarterback.
Yeah, what's their situation like? You had Sandroni played well week 1.
Yeah, Sandroni played well week 1. He was probably on a scale of low, medium, high. He was medium in the Corinth game.
Okay.
They went with junior Sal Sanders, the kid who's going to go to Air Force and play baseball.
Yep.
He came in, played some. They went with the sophomore, Stefan McGlon. While they scored all those points, I think the quarterback, the coaches are still scratching their head this week about who is going to play quarterback for them. And Trent Hammond is looking for somebody to step up before they get into division play and start playing all these 6A folks up in DeSoto County and Columbus and South Panola. You know, you got to be established at quarterback, and all 3 of these kids bring something different to the table. You know, Sandroni probably knows the offense better than anybody.
Right.
You know, he's I think he's only 5'9" though, and puts him kind of at a disadvantage there. I understand the Sander kid is a great vertical passer, having some problems with the underneath routes and things, which Tupelo throws a lot. Screens, bubble screens and things. And then McGlon's just a talented athlete, a sophomore, a really big kid with a strong arm.
Just not polished.
No, not polished. And you're trying to win games right now. I think that's why we're seeing the senior Sandroni in there. Wouldn't be surprised if he starts again this week because he does know what's going on, and he knows the offense. And I think they feel comfortable will hooray there. I still think it's Ray's job to lose. And but they are a little up in the air about somebody really taking over and getting a grasp.
One interesting aspect of this game is you've got two former Golden Wave players now playing for Shannon. You've got the receiver Chris Shannon, and then
Chris Shannon is back in Tupelo.
No, Chris Shannon is at Tupelo now. No, what happened?
I don't. Something happened on his transfer. It was.
So he's not playing.
No,
for
he's
Shannon.
not. He's at Tupelo right now.
I got you.
And he's like one of 5 or 6 receivers that they've got.
Okay.
And they're and he hasn't seen a lot of action.
Okay.
Here
so he's
early,
back with Tupelo,
but he's back. Yeah.
But you got Keegan Huddleston, the running back, who is at Shannon, was Tupelo's leading rusher last year, so they got now they have to defend him.
Yeah, and Blake can tell you they've got really 2 good running backs.
Okay.
Shannon.
Yeah, and Blake had a story on the Shannon offense in today's Journal, and Daryl Carter, he said before the season he thought they could average 30 points a game. It's only 2 games in, games against Caledonia and Nettleton. Tupelo is going to be a higher caliber opponent, but still they're averaging 35.5 points. So far so good.
Yeah, I kind of left it out. He actually told me before the season he was like, we could average more than 30. He's like, maybe even more than 45, and I was like, maybe not that much, but yeah. And so they're doing 35 points per game, and as we talked about earlier, Gillian, the sophomore quarterback, is really kind of taking the job by storm. Last year, he had some shaky performances, and like Gene said, he came in against Tupelo, which talk about the hardest game to go into as a freshman. But those kind of things, that's what you look back on, and that's what helps you grow.
Right.
And he Carter was really big this summer about getting the team to do 7-on-7, which we covered a lot this summer. Gene covered a lot this summer, just to get better at the speed of the game, understand the routes and whatnot. And that's really paid off. He's way more of a vertical threat than he was last year.
Right.
And that's what's really helped out this offense become more explosive.
Okay. Well, a good story there. You can find it from Blake in today's Journal or at djournal.com. So Tupelo-Shannon, that's one big matchup to watch this week. Another one, not really a rivalry game, I guess, but it's an interesting matchup. You got Kossuth trying to bounce back from that loss to Pontotoc, at Baldwin trying to bounce back from the loss to Booneville. 2 very good teams. Kossuth ranked 3rd now in our small school rankings. Baldwin ranked 5th. And, of course, Blake, you've seen Baldwin.
Yeah, but both teams trying to bounce back. And I meant to mention it earlier. Yeah, Pontotoc, they're 2-0. Their first win was against Houston, who had the impressive win against Calhoun City. So talking about how good they are. So, I mean, it's no bad loss that Kossuth lost by 12 points to what looks like a really good Pontotoc team. So this game will be really interesting. How does J. Lee Adams bounce back? How does Kossuth overall bounce back? Yeah. And Baldwin, who, I'm sure if you talk to the coaches, they would say, Booneville's a really great team and we just lost. But I'm sure if you got them to be extremely honest, they'd be really disappointed in their loss. They thought that was a winnable game, and they would have been favored going in. Yeah. So how do both of them bounce back? It'll be interesting. I think it's always interesting to see how teams kind of respond after getting punched in the face a little bit. How do you come together to fall apart? And I think these are 2 teams that this will kind of shape the narrative of their season. The loser will go 1-2, and it'll be a disappointing 1-2. The other 2-1, things will be on the up and up. And
then we've got West Point and Starkville, one of the best rivalries in the area. That's number 1 versus number 2 in our large school poll. Starkville number 1. That game is going to be played at Starkville. The Yellow Jackets are 2-0, coming off that win we mentioned earlier against Oxford. West Point 1-0. They didn't open the season until last week. They beat Louisville. You almost got me saying Louisville. They beat Louisville pretty handily there in their opening game. So West Point and Starkville, Gene, that's, like I said, one of the better matchups annually, and both these teams this year look to be contenders in their respective classifications to win state.
Yeah, we've got Paul Jones covering that. Yep. He's our correspondent in Starkville. He's been to a number of those West Point Starkville games for us. And
yes, he has.
Oh wow, that's going to be a packed stadium. That's going to be people everywhere. They'll be lined up around the field, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And you've got Starkville 2-0. West Point had an open date to begin the season, which I thought was strange, but West Point's 1-0. Really a great matchup. It's a game I wish somebody would tape so I could watch it.
Yeah,
after,
exactly.
After I got home.
Exactly. Well, we can follow it on Twitter. West Point,
Yeah.
Starkville, both good at especially Starkville. They'll give you play-by-play on Twitter there. Some other games of note this week, guys. I know we've got the A game, Amory and Aberdeen. Aberdeen is down, though, this year. So.
Yeah, so you'd have to favor Amory if you were going in a 2-touchdown favorite.
You setting the line on that, Gene? Yeah,
There you
2-touchdown favorite.
For entertainment purposes only.
Exactly. Oh, who else we got this week, guys? You got really... besides the games we've mentioned, there's not a lot of great matchups. We do have Oklahoma at Houston. Oklahoma, not sure what they've got this year, Gene. You may be more familiar.
I think they're pretty talented. That was certainly a game we looked at to possibly cover, but we start looking at games and we start running out of, we're trying to go everywhere.
But you can only go so many places.
We can only go so many places, and we have somebody who will actually be at that game that'll be able to feed us some information. But I think that'll be a good matchup. Houston should win that game. I think just bodies.
Yeah.
Bigger school.
Yeah.
But I like that one. That's a real attractive game.
Got New Albany at Pontotoc. You've got Saltillo at Itawamba AHS. You've got TCPS at Biggersville.
It's been moved to Thursday.
That's right. That's a Thursday game now.
And I'll be there in Biggersville. Wanted to get by and see TCPS last week, and that was one of those things where situation where we ran out of bodies. They're probably glad we didn't come. They lost to Oak Hill, so maybe we can catch them. I think TCPS Biggersville looks like a pretty even matchup.
Yep. All right. So those are some games to look forward to this week. Let's now hit up the athletes of the week. Do this every week, recognizing a male and female athlete who've excelled on the field of play in the past week. So, Gene, let's start with the female athlete of the week. Who we got?
Well, I kept it in softball this week, and it's really hard with slow pitch softball. They're supposedly not using as powerful bats, but just about every game called in, there's like hundreds of home runs being hit. Not that this girl hit hundreds of home runs the other night, but it was last night, as a matter of fact. And I actually talked with the coach, Chris Pace, about this last night. But Ashley Simmons from Amory had 3 hits and a home run, and they beat Morville 13-6. Now, Morville lost to Manatee, a really good Manatee team, I believe, over the weekend. So, but this Morville team's loaded, and I'm not taking anything from Amory, but they're 5-3 now.
Yeah.
So, boy, softball season is crazy. Everybody beats everybody. I talked with a few coaches. I was going to do a story on all the home runs being hit.
Yeah.
And it kind of got bogged down, but one coach said, the shorter, if you play on a field with short fences, you can still get the ball out.
Yeah.
They're using a smaller ball. I don't think like any smaller this year than they have in the past, but it really carries.
Yeah.
And players are stronger, just like in every sport. Girls are bigger and stronger. They're powerlifting. Yeah. And I know Nettleton's girls have powerlifted for years, and I know Morville's girls used to CrossFit train. I'm sure they're still doing it.
Goodness.
And so there's some girls with some pop. I think when you drop those fences back, though, to 275, 300, the home runs become flyouts. You got to start learning how to hit line drives.
That's right. And then our male athlete of the week.
Well, I kind of gave it a tie, and it goes back to Houston. We talked about Houston earlier. Uriah Shepard, Houston's quarterback, passed for 131 yards and a touchdown, and rushed for 58 yards and a touchdown in their win over Calhoun City. I haven't seen him play. Blake's seen him play. He says he's really talented. And then Houston's defense was just dominating. I never saw the yardage on that, but the whole Calhoun City to 1 touchdown.
That doesn't happen often.
No.
And,
so that's pretty impressive. So we'll just give them a tie for male athlete with the entire Houston defense and Uriah Shepard.
There you go. Athletes of the week. Good stuff. And that's it for today's episode of Prep Rally. Again, follow us on Twitter at DJournalPreps. I'm on Twitter at Brad Locke. Blake is on there at Blake Morgan DJ. Gene's on there at Gene Phelps. And you can find us, this podcast, which is both a podcast and a webcast. The podcast drops in iTunes, any of your podcast apps. You can find them there, or at preprally.djournal.com. That's it for this week. We'll be back next Wednesday. See what happened in week 3.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. See y'all next time.